Usually when you decide to pick up a new creative skill, say, uh, building furniture or painting, the first instinct is to just rush out and obsess over the tools.
Oh, absolutely. You go buy the most expensive brushes or, the top-tier table saw,
Right. And you just stare at them, expecting the masterpiece to essentially build itself.
which never happens.
No, it never happens. Sitting down to actually use them, inevitably you realize you have no idea what you're doing. And that high-end table saw suddenly feels like a very dangerous, very expensive paperweight.
Yeah, that's a very real feeling.
But stepping into the world of video editing, specifically if you, the listener, are gearing up to edit a documentary project, our source material for today's deep dive flips that entirely on its head.
It really does.
Because the central thesis we're unpacking is just incredibly liberating. It basically says learning video editing is genuinely easy.
I mean, I know it sounds totally counterintuitive when you look at how complex an interface like Premiere or DaVinci Resolve actually appears.
Yeah, it looks like a spaceship dashboard.
Exactly. We tend to conflate the tool with the ability, right? We assume that mastering the software means we've somehow mastered editing.
But the software is just a vehicle.
Right, it's just a vehicle.
Yeah.
The approach we're examining today strips all of that away, arguing that the true craft is built on a very specific system instead.
And it's a pretty simple system, isn't it?
Yeah, it's literally just 3 small habits stacked together. A problem-solving mindset, a simple knowledge management habit, and a foundation of universal concepts.
And focusing on that system over the software is really how we avoid getting hit by the absolute fire hose of the internet.
Oh, the internet is overwhelming. A beginner can easily drown in endless tutorials, scattered notes, intense hardware debates.
And they just burn out within a month.
Yep, completely burn out.
So our mission here today is to deliberately plant seeds for how to learn the craft, rather than exhaustively cataloging every single button or menu dropdown.
Because before we even, double-click an app icon, we have to talk about how you think when you sit down at the computer.
Right, the mindset shift.
Exactly. You have to stop thinking of yourself as an operator trying to learn a software program and start thinking of yourself as a problem solver whose current arena just happens to be video.
Okay, let's unpack this a bit, because that reframe seems crucial.
It is. It's what keeps a beginner from quitting. Because if you strip away the timelines and the intricate panels, an editor is really just closing the gap between raw material and a final goal.
So every session you sit down for isn't really an editing session.
No, not at all. It's a sequence of tiny problems.
Like, why is this clip out of sync?
Right, or why does the audio peak red right here? Or even, why won't this final sequence export?
So getting stuck isn't hitting a brick wall.
No. In this mindset, being stuck is literally just the next puzzle on your list.
Which means the most valuable skill you can have, far more valuable than memorizing some fast keyboard shortcut, is shrinking the distance between I'm stuck and I found the fix.
Exactly. And there is a specific 3-beat loop for doing this.
Right, the guide lays this out.
Yeah. First, you define the problem clearly. Second, you minimize the friction in capturing the solution. And third, you search immediately.
Let's talk about that first step, defining the problem. Because there's this fascinating concept the source borrows from software engineers.
Oh, the rubber duck debugging.
And rubber duck debugging. It comes from a classic programming book called The Pragmatic Programmer.
I love this concept so much.
It's so funny, but it works. The idea is that a coder will physically place a rubber duck on their desk and explain their broken code out loud to it, line by line.
Just talking to a toy.
Literally.
Yeah.
And the psychology behind it is that just the act of forcing yourself to articulate the problem often surfaces the solution in your own head.
Because it forces precision. When we are frustrated, we tend to be vague. We just say, it's broken.
Right, I hate this computer.
Exactly. But precision is the key that actually unlocks the fix.
By the way, I have to ask, does precision matter that much when you're just typing a query into a search bar?
What do you mean?
Like, if I'm looking for a fix, is typing Premiere drops frames during 4K playback on my laptop genuinely a better strategy than just typing Premiere is laggy?
Oh, 100%. What's fascinating here is that laggy is a symptom that could have 50 different root causes.
Like what?
I mean, anything from a full hard drive to a corrupted file. But drops frames in 4K points the search algorithm directly toward hardware processing limits or specific playback settings.
Oh,
and if you do have to search, pasting the exact error message, adding the software name and version, and even appending the word Reddit or forum to your query is huge.
Because it bypasses all those generic SEO articles.
Exactly. It takes you straight to the real humans who have solved this exact problem thousands of times publicly. You almost never need to invent the answer.
You just need to know how to search for it effectively.
Right. And when you do click on a video tutorial, watching just the first 30 seconds to confirm it actually addresses your specific issue that saves you from wasting 10 minutes on a total tangent.
Okay, so once you actually solve that out-of-sync audio issue, you inevitably face a completely different hurdle next Tuesday.
Which is remembering how you fixed it in the first place.
Right, so you don't have to scour those same forums all over again. You need a way to catch that solution.
And this is where personal knowledge management, or PKM, comes into play.
Because the real bottleneck in learning a creative craft today isn't access to information. The internet is absolutely flooded with it.
Yeah, the bottleneck is retrieval. It's finding that one specific trick you saw 3 weeks ago and doing it in under 5 seconds.
Think of your own brain as a computer's RAM.
Right. It is incredibly fast, great for immediate tasks, but it is small and volatile. Things just drop out of it all the time.
Exactly. So your PKM system acts as your hard drive.
By offloading the specific technical solutions onto that external hard drive, you free up your mental bandwidth for the actual creative work. The storytelling and the editing.
But when it comes to building that hard drive, there is a massive trap waiting for beginners.
Oh yeah, the tool trap.
Right. The community gold standard for note-taking right now is an app called Obsidian.
Which is amazing, man.
It's incredibly powerful. It links ideas dynamically. But trying to learn Obsidian at the exact same time you are trying to learn a massive program like Premiere.
It's too much.
It's like trying to learn how to drive a manual sports car while navigating a winding mountain road in the rain. The cognitive load is just way too high. You will crash.
You absolutely will. The friction of learning the note-taking tool will entirely derail learning the editing tool.
So what's the alternative?
The strategy is to use the most frictionless tool already in your pocket. For Mac or iPhone users, that is literally just Apple Notes using basic tags.
Like just typing a hashtag followed by a word like hashtag audiofix.
Exactly. Or for Android, it's Google Keep and its label system. Consistent use of a simple tool massively outperforms a complex, highly customized Obsidian setup that you just abandon after 4 days.
Because it feels like a chore.
Right. Frictionless capture is the whole game here.
And one of the highest leverage habits the guide mentions doesn't even require a Notes app. It just uses YouTube.
Yes, this is such a good tip.
You just create one single private YouTube playlist per software program. Call it something simple like Premiere Learning.
And every time a tutorial actually solves a problem, you save it to that list.
But the temptation is to over-organize, right? Like making separate playlists for color grading, for audio mixing, for transitions.
Yeah, but that granularity actually adds friction when you're just starting out.
It does.
That granularity will develop naturally much later when a single playlist becomes overwhelmingly crowded. In the beginning, just capturing the video is way more important than categorizing it perfectly.
There's also a very practical note in the source material about YouTube Premium.
Oh, right, the pricing.
Yeah. As of April 2026 in the US, the individual plan runs $15.99 a month, and the student plan is $7.99.
Which, to be clear, is absolutely not a requirement to learn.
No, not at all. But if you are spending 2 hours a day studying tutorials, removing the pre-roll and mid-roll advertisements removes dozens of tiny friction points.
It really breaks your concentration when an ad pops up mid-tutorial.
Exactly. It transforms YouTube from a noisy platform into a seamless, uninterrupted educational library.
And as your notes and saved videos do eventually start to grow, maintaining that frictionless environment requires a bit of a structural shift.
This is where we get into MOCs, right?
Yes, maps of content, or MOCs. Nick Milo popularized this in the Obsidian community, but it applies perfectly to Apple Notes too.
So what exactly is an MOC?
It's simply a note whose only job is to serve as a hub, linking out to other notes.
See, this feels a bit counterintuitive to how we are conventionally taught to organize things.
How so?
Well, my instinct on day one would be to create a highly organized, color-coded master folder system on my computer. A folder for audio, a folder for video, a folder for exporting.
Right, but folders force an artificial rigid tidiness that doesn't really match how knowledge actually works in our brains.
Okay, tell me more.
So, a single note about a specific audio fix might relate to Premiere, it might relate to Adobe Audition, and it might relate specifically to the documentary project you are currently editing.
Okay, I see. And if I use folders, I have to decide which one box that note lives in.
Exactly. MOCs, on the other hand, allow knowledge to grow organically. That single audio fix note can be linked from your Premiere MOC, your Audition MOC, and your documentary MOC simultaneously.
It reflects the interconnected way our brains actually process information.
Spot on.
All right, so we have the problem-solving mindset, and we have the frictionless capture system. Now we need to look at what we are actually capturing.
The fun stuff.
All right, the software will inevitably update or change, but there is a universal language of the cut. It's a foundational craft that survives regardless of the tool.
Because every non-linear editor, whether it's DaVinci Resolve, Final Cut, or Premiere, shares 5 basic primitives.
Okay, let's list those out.
First, you have the timeline, which is the horizontal canvas where time flows left to right. Then you have tracks, the stacked horizontal lanes separating video and audio.
Right, pretty standard.
Then you have clips, which are the actual blocks of media. The playhead, which marks your exact current position in time.
And the monitors.
Yes, specifically the source monitor for viewing raw footage and the program monitor for viewing your assembled timeline. Once you understand the function of those 5 elements, moving to a new program is just learning a different dialect of the exact same language.
And within that language, you have your basic punctuation, which are the cuts.
The standard hard cut is just shot A immediately following shot B.
But relying entirely on hard cuts makes an edit feel incredibly robotic.
It really does. It feels very jarring.
This is where J cuts and L cuts come in.
The secret weapons.
A J cut happens when the audio of the next clip begins playing before the video visibly cuts over.
Right on the timeline, the audio track extends to the left under the previous video, forming the shape of a J.
It builds subconscious anticipation, right? Because you hear the new environment or the new speaker just a fraction of a second before you actually see them.
Exactly. And the L cut operates in reverse. The audio from the current clip continues playing underneath the video of the next shot, forming an L shape on the timeline.
And this is what makes interviews and conversations feel natural.
Yeah, because when one person is speaking in real life, we naturally look at the listener's reaction before the speaker has finished their sentence. The L cut just mimics human psychology.
So if a basic hard cut is just stacking bricks one on top of the other, J and L cuts are like the mortar between those bricks.
That's a perfect way to put it. They soften the edges, they blend the materials, and they keep the wall from looking like a disjointed, rigid stack of blocks.
Without that mortar, every single visual cut accompanied by an abrupt audio change really jolts the viewer.
It does. The ultimate goal of a well-executed J or L cut is to make the transition entirely invisible to the audience.
Which highlights a really critical truth about editing. Audio dominates the experience.
Oh, absolutely. George Lucas famously stated, "The sound is 50% of the movie-going experience."
And director Danny Boyle argues it's even higher, closer to 70 or 80%.
I believe it. Nothing exposes an amateur project faster than neglected audio.
You could have a beautifully color-graded cinematic visual, but if the dialogue sounds like it was recorded inside a tin can in a bathroom...
The audience will tune out in seconds. Dialogue clarity is just non-negotiable.
But beyond the dialogue, there is the ambient sound, often called room tone.
Right, because every room has a unique sonic signature, a subtle hiss or hum.
Laying a continuous track of that room tone underneath a chopped-up interview finically glues all those disparate cuts together, so the background doesn't just drop to dead silence between sentences.
And the visual equivalent of that audio glue is B-roll.
Yes, B-roll. These are the supplemental shots, right? Like close-ups of hands working, establishing shots of a building, textures of an environment.
B-roll performs 3 massive heavy lifting jobs in a documentary.
Let's hear them.
First, it illustrates exactly what the subject is talking about, anchoring abstract concepts in reality. Second, it hides your edits.
Right, because if an interviewee rambles for 2 minutes and you compress their best points down to 30 seconds, you will have these jarring jump cuts where their head literally snaps to a different position.
Which looks terrible.
Yeah.
But laying B-roll over those cuts makes the manipulation completely vanish.
And the third job is simply giving the audience room to breathe.
Watching a talking head for 10 minutes straight is visually exhausting. B-roll provides pacing.
Which leads to an absolute golden rule for anyone shooting a documentary. Capture significantly more B-roll than you think you could ever possibly use.
You will acutely feel the pain of not having enough when you are staring at a jump cut in the edit bay with literally nothing to cover it up.
I can only imagine. So wielding all of these elements, the mortar of your cuts, the pristine audio, the mountain of B-roll, this brings us to the actual workflow of building the film.
Wrestling hours of documentary footage into a cohesive story requires abandoning perfectionism entirely.
The golden rule here is assembly first, right? You have to finish ugly.
Finish ugly. That is the mantra. The biggest mistake a beginner makes is trying to perfectly color grade and add transitions to the first 10 seconds of a film before they've even figured out the ending.
You simply dump everything you might potentially use into the timeline in roughly chronological order.
Right. And a solid benchmark is to let your assembly edit run to about 140% of your intended final length.
So if the goal is a tight 60-minute documentary, your ugly assembly edit should be around 84 minutes.
Yep. Because you cannot polish a void, you can only polish a rough draft.
But staring at that bloated 84-minute timeline has to be psychologically daunting.
Oh, it is.
Yeah.
The climb from a messy assembly edit to a coherent, watchable rough cut is universally considered the hardest, sweatiest part of the editing process.
It is where many beginners assume they simply lack talent and just quit.
But that overwhelming difficulty is the standard experience. It is just the reality of documentary filmmaking, where shooting ratios are incredibly massive.
A 50-to-1 ratio is common, right? Meaning, for every 50 hours of raw footage shot, only 1 hour makes the final cut.
Exactly. You have to ruthlessly find the spine of the story, open with a compelling hook in the first 60 to 90 seconds, and kill your darlings.
Even the beautiful shots.
Especially the beautiful shots. If a beautifully composed cinematic shot does not advance the narrative, it has to be deleted. A tightly paced 40-minute documentary will always leave a deeper impact than a flabby, wandering 60-minute one.
But here's where it gets really interesting. Managing a 50-to-1 shooting ratio purely inside a software timeline seems like a recipe for a mental breakdown.
Oh, dragging hour-long clips around to see how the story feels would take lifetimes.
Which introduces a fascinating, albeit controversial, technique from the source material, the paper edit.
Right, the per edit.
The strategy is to transcribe all of your interviews and physically arrange the printed quotes on a table or in a text document before you ever even touch the timeline.
It's old school but effective.
But honestly, isn't that just adding an extra step before we get to the fun part? Adding a massive administrative transcription step seems incredibly tedious.
It feels like a delay, for sure, but catching a fundamental story problem on paper saves days of timeline wrestling.
How so?
Well, moving a paragraph of text from bottom of page 3 to the top of page 1 takes 2 seconds. Attempting that same structural shift in a timeline, untangling the primary video, the B-roll layers, the dialogue tracks, the music, the sound effects, that takes hours.
I see.
The paper edit isolates the narrative structure, allowing you to build a rock-solid story arc before you get distracted by the shiny visuals. You do the structural engineering on paper before you start pouring the concrete in the timeline.
That makes perfect sense. So with the structural engineering done and the mindset locked in, the final piece is actually getting your hands on the tools and executing.
Right, and the barrier to entry here used to be thousands of dollars in specialized hardware and software licenses.
But today, the friction is basically zero. Our source material uses Premiere as the primary vehicle. Adobe actually streamlined the branding recently, dropping the Pro moniker in January 2026 alongside the version 26.0 launch at Sundance.
Signaling this tool is really for everyone now.
Exactly. As of May 2026, there is a 7-day free trial to start. And if you are a student, the financial friction is incredibly low, just $19.99 a month for the entire Creative Suite.
And the single app annual plan is $22.99 a month.
And if the budget is absolutely zero, DaVinci Resolve offers a genuinely robust, professional-grade, free alternative.
It's amazing what's out there for free. And the hardware barrier has vanished as well.
You no longer need a massive desktop computer to edit 4K footage.
Nope. If you are on a modest standard laptop, you just use a proxy workflow.
Let's explain proxies because this is a huge hardware hack.
Yeah, a proxy is essentially a lightweight, heavily compressed, low-resolution copy of your massive original video file.
Think of it like reading the cliff notes of a dense textbook while outlining an essay.
Exactly. The computer processor doesn't have to decode massive amounts of 4K color data just to let you trim a clip. You edit with these small, fast proxies, experiencing buttery smooth playback.
Then, when the edit is locked and you hit export, the software automatically swaps the high-quality 4K originals back in for the final render.
It entirely neutralizes hardware limitations.
So once you are up and running, smoothly chopping up proxies, the danger becomes how you measure your progress.
Yeah, there is a strong warning in the guide against treating your learning journey like a rigid syllabus.
Deciding that week 1 is audio, week 2 is color grading. That sets an artificial, fixed pace.
Because the moment a complex problem pushes you behind that imaginary calendar, you feel like you are failing.
So what's the alternative?
A real practitioner doesn't read a syllabus, they read the feedback of the work itself. You learn by continuously turning the practice loop, watch a tutorial, capture the specific fix in your PKM system, and apply it to the timeline.
So you basically look for internal green lights and warning signals.
Exactly. A green light to move from your assembly edit to your rough cut isn't based on the timeline looking good.
Because an assembly never looks good.
Never. The green light is simply the realization that every necessary piece of the story is on the timeline in roughly the correct order.
And a warning signal would be noticing that you are spending more time color coding your Apple Notes and organizing your YouTube playlist than you are actually editing footage.
Oh yeah, when the system stops serving the work and becomes the focus, your knowledge management has quietly mutated into sophisticated procrastination.
That is such a good point. So what is the ultimate accelerator for your progress once you have these basics down?
It's reverse engineering the media you consume.
How does that work in practice?
You take a 30-second sequence from a documentary you admire, and you watch it 5 times.
5 times.
5 times. The first time, just watch the story. The second time, count the literal number of cuts. The third time, close your eyes and listen only to the layers of audio design.
That sounds intense.
Then you analyze the transitions. Finally, ask yourself, if I had these raw files, how would I have built this timeline?
So watching transforms into studying, and studying solidifies into skill.
You literally train your brain to perceive the invisible choices the editor made.
Which brings us back to the core thesis. The software really is just the car.
Yeah.
The system, the problem-solving mindset, the frictionless capture of knowledge, and the universal language of the cut. That is how you learn to drive. Define the problem, capture the fix, apply the concepts, and just keep turning the loop.
It entirely demystifies what seems from the outside like an impossibly complex technical mountain.
It really does. But I want to leave you, the listener, with a final, somewhat provocative thought that builds on that idea of reverse engineering.
Okay, let's hear it.
The guide encourages you to dissect a 30-second sequence to learn how to manipulate footage. But consider the broader implication of developing that skill. Once you train your brain to spot those invisible J-cuts, once you notice the strategic, emotional B-roll masking a heavily compressed and manipulated interview, once you feel the pacing being artificially accelerated by the underlying room tone, you can never unsee it.
Never.
You can never watch reality TV, the evening news, or even a friend's highly polished social media post the same way ever again. You become fundamentally immune to the manipulation of the edit.
That new lens really changes everything.
So the question is, when you put down the tools and step away from the timeline, how will this new superpower alter the way you consume the reality being presented to you every single day?
It's a great question.
Keep looking for the cuts.